All right, well, let's stay in Washington and go to David Gartenstein-Ross. He is a security expert with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Joins us from the American Capitol to give us a little bit of background on this. So we're seeing this push and pull, David. Now, of course, Baghdad once again, as it has been before, under threat. Still the battle for Kobane raging. Your overall assessment of what we're seeing on the ground?
We're seeing one brilliant tactical commander, Omar al-Shishani, who's been able to make a series of advances through Anbar by fighting in a very different way than the Islamic State is fighting elsewhere. If you look at them in the north of Iraq, if you look at them especially on Kobane, they're fighting like a conventional military, and they've expended a lot of resources trying to take Kobane, whereas Shishani, who's leading the charge in Anbar, has probably less than 1,000 men, but has been spectacularly successful by engaging in a series of feints and sucking the enemy in and getting them trapped. Really a spectacular advance, and something that fortunately isn't being replicated elsewhere in ISIS's network.
We have to remember that there are some top military commanders with ISIS who, of course, have a lot of experience formerly in the Iraqi army itself of Saddam Hussein.
There are. A lot of the ex-Baathists, though, were part of the initial charge, but weren't part of ISIS's structure itself. For example, the group JRTN is considered an ex-Baathist organization with some high-ranking generals within it. It has a lot of tensions with ISIS, and it's not necessarily on their side right now. There's places where the two of them are actually fighting in Iraq.
There is sort of one propaganda coup after another going on here for ISIS, certainly as they continue to threaten Kobane, now Baghdad. There is also, of course, a meeting going on today in Washington, military officials from 20 different countries taking part in that. What should be on the top of the agenda? What are you expecting realistically, David, to come of that?
One of the big questions is who's willing to devote more resources to this, because it's clear that, especially in Anbar, the Iraqi military really isn't up to the challenge, at least not of breaking ISIS's hold on the territory that it controls, and they've been clearly losing ground to ISIS. The United States would do well to consider putting special operations forces on the ground. Other countries as well, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, if you see ISIS make significant advances, need to think about moving forward to more aggressively protect their borders.
Meantime, we see the Turks agreeing to allow coalition forces to use some of its bases close to certainly northern Syria, a lot closer than they've been able to get before.
Yeah, the Turks still aren't doing everything they could with respect to Kobane. Their hesitance to put ground troops in is understandable, but at the same time, they haven't been letting weapons through the border. They haven't been letting military-age males through the border, and in that way, they've been doing their part to contribute to the fall of Kobane.
Do you think we're going to see ground troops, or are we still way too early in this fight?
What does ground troops mean? That's one of the big questions. It's used in these inconsistent ways. I think that we'll see special operations forces in there. There already are special operations forces in there. I don't think that we'll see the United States or other Western countries putting conventional military forces in on the ground. But the boots on the ground phase, ground forces phrase, these phrases don't necessarily mean what people think they mean.
David Gartenstein-Ross with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Good to talk to you today. Thanks for making time for us.
Likewise.